during my appendicitis surgery, Kevin personally escorted me into the operating room. As the anesthesia seeped into my veins and my consciousness began to fade, I overheard Kevin speaking with the doctor. "Mr. Knowers, are you sure about this? 2 milliliters of concentrated sulfuric acid 1T just burned through Ms. Cortez's throat. It could kill her. If you just want to get Valentina out of this nightmare, there are other ways. Why do you have to harm Ms. Cortez? If she dies, she dies. I'll send her body to Damian and take Tina far away from all of this," he continued. "I promised Tina I'd save her from Damian's grasp. Valeria is her twin sister. Having her take Tina's place is the safest plan." As the anesthesia took full effect, it felt like my heart was already dissolving. So all the love, all the warmth, it had all been a cruel joke. Chapter 1. During my appendicitis surgery, Kevin personally escorted me into the operating room. As the anesthesia seeped into my veins and my consciousness began to fade, I overheard Kevin speaking with the doctor. "Mr. Knowers, are you sure about this? 2 milliliters of concentrated sulfuric acid 1T just burned through Ms. Cortez's throat. It could kill her. If you just want to get Valentina out of this nightmare, there are other ways. Why do you have to harm Ms. Cortez? If she dies, she dies. I'll send her body to Damian and take Tina far away from all of this," he continued. "I promised Tina I'd save her from Damian's grasp. Valeria is her twin sister. Having her take Tina's place is the safest plan." As the anesthesia took full effect, it felt like my heart was already dissolving. So all the love, all the warmth, it had all been a cruel joke. Kevin, the man who once caught me when I was falling, had only done it to clear the path for Valentina. If that's what he wanted, I'd give him exactly that. And one more thing, Tina has a scar from giving birth 2 years ago. Make the same incision on Valeria and age it properly. Damian can't suspect a thing. The doctor's hand trembled at Kevin's words. A few drops of concentrated sulfuric acid dripped out of its container. He sucked in a sharp breath. "Mr. Knowers, do you really have to go this far? Ms. Cortez was your childhood friend. 3 years ago, Valentina set her sights on Damian, Ms. Cortez's boyfriend at the time. You planned Ms. Cortez's assault so Valentina could get what she wanted. It forced Ms. Cortez to broke her engagement. And now you're..." Before the doctor could finish, Kevin cut him off. "Just do your job. Don't forget, you were the one who personally performed Valeria's hysterectomy back then. What's wrong? Growing a conscience now?" Snatching the beaker from the doctor's hand, Kevin pried my mouth open and poured the diluted acid down my throat. The liquid scorched everything in its path, burning my mouth, searing down my esophagus and clawing into my stomach like fire. Pain exploded inside me. My body convulsed violently, tears blurring my vision as I gagged and choked, my instincts desperately trying to expel the poison. Kevin held me tighter, his voice rising in alarm. "What's happening? Didn't you give her anesthesia? Why is she in so much pain?" The doctor's face tightened, hesitation flickering in his eyes. "It's a physiological reaction. I can't stop it." Perhaps I looked too miserable, because the doctor tried once more to talk Kevin out of it. "The acid has already corroded her stomach. If we operate on her now, there's a high risk of infection. Mr. Knowers, are you sure you don't want to reconsider?" Kevin's grip on me tightened. His jaw clenched as he snapped, "Enough. Just do your job and prep for surgery." The doctor let out a heavy sigh before turning away to get everything ready. A single tear landed on my face. Kevin's voice wavered. "Rhea, I'm sorry, but this is what you owe Tina. She was kidnapped when she was only 2. She suffered for years, and we barely managed to get her back. I want to let her go through hell again. And you spent all these years living the life she should have had." He gently wiped the blood and bile from my lips, his touch unexpectedly tender. "This was my decision alone. Tina knows nothing about it. If you need someone to hate, hate me." My stomach churned violently, the acid burning through me like fire, but I felt nothing, just a deep, hollow, cold The nightmare that haunted me for 3 years was never an accident. It was all part of Kevin's plan. He destroyed me once to help Valentina steal Damian. Now it happened again. Kevin was sacrificing my whole being just to save Valentina from Damian's grasp. Chapter 2. Since the very beginning I was nothing more than a disposable tool. To him, the love I thought was real, the salvation I believed in, it had all been nothing but lies and betrayal. Kevin leaned in close, pressing a kiss against my lips. Sleep now, it'll all be over soon. The familiar scent of pine surrounded me, thick and nauseating. I wanted to push him away, but the anesthesia had taken full effect. My body felt like lead. My mind slipped into darkness. A cold scalpel traced across my skin. Blood-stained water was carried out, basin after basin. Somewhere, deep inside me, the last frozen pieces of my heart began to crack, splintering apart. When I finally opened my eyes, Kevin's face was the first thing I saw. Too close, his bloodshot eyes filled with what looked like anguish. "Rhea, you're awake." His voice shook with emotion, his eyes glistening with tears. "If anything had happened to you, I wouldn't have been able to forgive myself." He suddenly slapped himself hard. "This is all my fault. I made too many enemies in business and you got caught in the crossfire. Someone bribed the doctor to hurt you. You." I lowered my eyes, watching his theatrical performance in silence. Kevin's face twisted in grief. "They forced you to swallow sulfuric acid. They cut you open, but Hank, thank God you're still here." His sobs were ragged as he buried his face against my neck, his tears seeping into my hospital gown. Every word he spoke was thick with concern, yet every single one was actually laced with love meant for someone else. I never thought Kevin, the man who never cared to hide his true feelings, could put on such an elaborate act. He did it all for Valentina. A sudden, searing pain tore through me, making my body shudder uncontrollably. "Rhea, what's wrong? Don't do this to me." Kevin jerked upright, panic flashed across his face. He didn't even stop to put on his fallen shoes before bolting out the door to call the doctor. The phone on the bedside table buzzed incessantly. With trembling hands, I reached out to it. Turned out it was Kevin's phone. The home wallpaper was still a picture of us. Unlocking it was effortless. The passcode was my birthday, or more likely, Valentina's. Unread Talkus voice messages popped up the screen one after another, all from her. "Kev, Damian hit me again. It hurts so much. When are you coming to save me? I wish I were my sister. She always had you and everyone else to protect her. But me? I was kidnapped as a child, and when I finally came home, I ended up in another nightmare. If I could trade places with her, I can't even imagine how happy I'd be." "Oh no, wrong number." Valentina quickly retracted all the messages. I hesitated before tapping switch. Account. A Talkus profile appeared on the screen. Only love, Tina. At the top of the chat list was Valentina, pinned right below it a group chat called One Big Happy Family. There wasn't a single mention of the word love in their private messages, yet love was woven into every interaction. Money transfers on Valentine's Day, good morning and good night messages, daily updates shared like secrets between lovers. The group chat had 99 plus unread messages. Inside were my parents, Kevin and Valentina. Our birthday was in 10 days and they were busy planning her celebration. Ever since Valentina came back, my birthday had quietly stopped being mine. Mom and Dad told me Tina went missing on her birthday. If we celebrate too much, it might bring up painful memories for her. Every year, without fail, Kevin would suddenly have an urgent situation on my birthday, leaving me alone. So for the past few years, I celebrated by myself. A round of small cake, a single candle to lit. That was it. I told myself the ritual didn't matter, that love was what truly counted. But now I saw the truth. All things that they did was never about protecting Valentina's feelings. They just wanted me out of the picture so they could go all out for her birthday, where I wouldn't see. Chapter 3. Valentina's message popped up. Again. Kev, I want to take another photo shoot together, when can we do it? This time, let us do something different. Photos my sister hasn't taken before, okay. I switched back to the original account and locked the screen. The wallpaper stared back at me. A radiant smile, happiness frozen in time. Beneath the sheer fabric of her dress, a glimpse of red nail polish peeked through. Valentina's favorite color. A quiet, bitter laugh escaped my lips. I picked up my own phone and sent a message to a number I could recite in my sleep, a number that now felt like it belonged to a stranger. In 10 days they'll send me to you. Book me a one-way ticket out of the country, then erase every trace of me here. I don't want anyone to find me. The reply from Kevin came almost instantly. No questions, no hesitation, just one word. Got it. Same as always. Footsteps rushed toward the door. I slipped the phone back into place without missing a beat. Closing my eyes, I let the tears fall, soaking into the pillow. The doctor came in, ran a brief examination, then administered a painkiller. His voice was calm but firm. She's in a weak condition. She needs rest. As soon as the doctor left, Kevin sat beside me, eyes red and filled with anguish, watching me like I was the most fragile thing in the world. After a long pause, he talked as if he'd taken a difficult decision. For your safety, I have no choice but to let Tina take your place. I'll talk to her with Mom and Dad. We'll convince her. His fingers traced my cheek, gentle and reverent, as if he were touching something fragile and irreplaceable. Rhea, I just want you to live with Tina's identity while you recover. It won't be for long, I promise. I'll bring you back. His words were full of concern, yet each one struck my already shattered heart like a blade of ice. I nodded silently. What he wanted was now the same path I had chosen for myself. Different intentions, same outcome. Going along with it was the best choice. Kevin hesitated, caught off guard. He had expected resistance. After all, Damian was my ex. Long ago I had blocked all of Damian's contact right in front of Kevin. I wanted to prove my devotion to him. A flicker of unease crossed his face, but it vanished just as quickly. He let out a breath, then pulled me into his arms, feigning reluctance. We haven't even parted yet, and I already miss you. Baby, I don't want to spend a single second away from you. Promise me take care of yourself and in 6 months be my most beautiful bride. Okay. Kevin's eyes brimmed with expectation. Beneath the surface, however, lay something far more telling: certainty. He was convinced I would be ecstatic, that I'd be so blinded by his proposal I would stop to question anything. For 3 years I had waited for this moment, imagined countless ways he might ask me to marry him, but not once had I pictured it happening in a hospital. Not once had I imagined I'd be covered in wounds when it happened. This wasn't a promise of happiness, it was a burial, a descent straight into hell. But I didn't bother shattering the illusion. In 10 days Kevin would no longer exist in my world. A wedding in 6 months, that was nothing more than a fantasy. Expressionless, I nodded. That's amazing. With his goal achieved, he pulled me into his arms again. But his words, meant to be comforting, rang hollow. I was worried you'd refuse because of your condition. Rhea, don't worry. No matter what happens, no matter how much you change, I will never abandon you. I leaned against his shoulder, exhausted, my eyes shutting as I stayed silent. Let him paint his perfect future. I knew better. After a while, he must have realized I wasn't responding. Only then did it seem to occur to him that my body had reached its limit. He gently laid me down and pressed a kiss to my forehead. Don't worry about a thing. Just rest. I'll take care of everything. Then he quietly left. 5 days later, at my insistence, I was discharged. Chapter 4. I expect none of this. My parents were supposed to be vacationing abroad, but they returned early to pick me up from the hospital with Kevin. On the way home, Kevin kept the mood light. Mom and Dad were so worried when they heard about your injury. They dropped everything and booked the earliest flight back. He grinned, Mom even got you some chocolate. At his words, my mother pulled a box of white chocolate from her bag and placed it in my hands. Yes, sweetheart, you need to regain your strength. Chocolate will help. A sharp ache spread through my chest, bitterness welling up inside me. Valentina was the one who loved chocolate. I had been allergic to it. Since childhood I couldn't have so much as a bite. Yet my own parents and the men who had shared my bed for years didn't know that. Fingers tightening around the edge of the box, I feigned a stomachache and closed my eyes, pretending to rest. Just 5 more days and this charade would finally be over. As the car rolled into the driveway, an excited voice rang out. Before it even came to a full stop, Mom, Dad, Kev, you're back. The moment the car slowed, my parents rushed out, pulling Valentina into their arms, their voices overflowing with warmth and concern. Kevin stood nearby, smiling at the heartwarming reunion, so caught up in the moment that he completely forgot to help me out of the car. Did you miss me? Valentina suddenly threw herself into Kevin's arms, tugging at his sleeve and pouting playfully. Kevin's expression stiffened as he instinctively glanced at me. Seeing no reaction on my face, he gently pushed Valentina away and quickly explained, "Don't misunderstand. Tina lived abroad with Damian. This is just a common greeting over there." My throat was too damaged to speak, so I simply curved my lips into a faint smile and shook my head, signaling that I didn't mind. Valentina, however, pouted and stomped her foot. "That's not just a greeting. I don't act this way with everyone." Kevin's face paled instantly. His eyes darted toward me in panic. Before he could say anything, I pretended not to notice and walked straight into the house. Behind me, I caught his low, urgent whisper, "Tina, don't make trouble. Just 5 more days. Be good." I gripped the staircase railing and made my way upstairs. Kevin called after me with a few half-hearted reminders, but he didn't follow. The past few days in the hospital had drained me, endless tests for drips and exhaustion pressing down like a weight. As soon as I lay down, sleep took over. By the time I woke up, it was dinner time. I got out of bed and headed downstairs, only to pause at the staircase when I heard my parents' voices. Back then, I really thought Damian was someone Tina could depend on, but he's actually an abusive bastard. If only she had chosen Kevin instead, none of this would have happened. "Enough," my mother interjected sharply. "What matters now is fixing this mess." "Kevin, you said you'd send Rhea in Tina's place. Are you sure this will work? What if she resists or exposes the plan?" Kevin placed a portion of vegetables onto Valentina's plate, his voice steady. She won tea. Even have the chance to speak." Their eyes met, soft, lingering, full of unspoken understanding. Then Kevin added, his tone turning ice cold, "I'll remove any obstacles standing in Tina's way." A brief pause. Then, with quiet finality, he said, "No matter the cost." My father slammed his palm against the table. "Good. That's exactly why I trust you with Tina. I know she's in good hands. As for Rhea," at the mention of my name, he hesitated as if searching for the right words, but before he could continue, my mother cut in, her voice laced with resentment. "She owes this to Tina. If she hadn't been such a coward back then, Tina would never have been kidnapped. Now that Tina is finally back, it's time for Rhea to make things right. Valentina was taken when we were both just 2 years old, far too young to understand anything. But instead of blaming themselves for not watching their child, they put the guilt on me. And now, to protect Valentina, they were willing to cast me aside without hesitation." Valentina dabbed at her eyes, her voice soft and full of hesitation. "I don't want to hurt my sister, but..." Kevin gently ran his fingers through her hair. "This has nothing to do with you, Tina. All you need to do is be happy." Valentina's eyes sparkled with delight and the dining room filled with cheerful laughter. I had been standing too long and my legs gave out slightly. My knee knocked against the railing, making a faint sound. "Rhea, you're awake." Valentina turned toward me with an expression of pleasant surprise, motioning for me to come downstairs for dinner. A flicker of awkwardness and guilt crossed my parents' faces. Kevin, however, reacted the most strongly. He rushed up the stairs in just a few strides, carefully steadying me. Rhea, when did you wake up? Swallowing the overwhelming bitterness and anger rising inside me, I simply gestured that I had just woken up. The tension in his shoulders eased immediately and he quickly explained, you were sleeping so soundly I couldn't bear to wake you for dinner. You're not upset, are you? A wave of nausea rolled through me. These people are wolves in sheep's clothing, devils pretending to be angels. I said nothing, only waving my hand dismissively and turned back into my room. Kevin followed me to the door, even thoughtfully closing it behind me. Laughter and conversation resumed downstairs as if nothing had happened, but I no longer cared. Ignoring the noise, I pulled out my phone and checked the message I had just received. Everything is ready. In 5 days, Valeria will no longer be in this world. Chapter 5. Summoning the last of my strength, I forced myself to start packing, gathering the few things that truly mattered to me. After searching for a while, I realized every treasured item in my locked gift box, carefully stored in the safe, was tied to Kevin. Faded, yellowed origami cranes, a fountain pen from a competition I had won, a small athlete's medal. Each piece held whispers of childhood memories. There, nestled among them, lay a massive pink diamond, the one Kevin had spent 100 million on at an auction 3 years ago after my accident, just to make me smile. The door suddenly swung open, yanking me from my thoughts. Valentina stepped in, her pink princess dress swaying with each graceful step, but the innocent, wide-eyed act she put on for Kevin and my parents was gone. Her gaze swept across my room, sharp and cold. Tisk, same parents, same blood, yet such different lives. Why did you get to grow up in luxury, while I was kidnapped and forced to suffer? She let out a soft, mocking laugh. But don't worry, this unfairness won't last much longer. Valeria, you're finally going to experience the pain I endured. She sneered, her voice dripping with mockery, as if all her misfortunes could be traced back to me alone. I ignored her and bent down to retrieve the pink diamond, only for her to snatch it away effortlessly. A fake diamond, and you actually treasure this? She let out a scornful laugh before reaching into her collar and pulling out a delicate pink diamond necklace. The real one is with me. Kev practically begged me to take it. He said he wanted to give me only the best. A violent tremor ran through me. I lunged forward, desperate to reclaim it, but Valentina shoved me aside with ease. My body hit the floor with a thud. Pathetic. Do you still think you have a chance with Kev? She clicked, her tongue in disdain. You're nothing now, just a cheap, discarded plaything. Then, with deliberate cruelty, she lifted her heel and pressed it onto my fingers, grinding down, slow and merciless. A raw, guttural scream tore from my throat. I struggled to fight back, but before I could react, Valentina's eyes narrowed, and in a swift, calculated motion she slapped herself. Her sharp nails left 2 faint, red scratches on her pale cheek. Clutching her face, she let out a broken sob. Sister, did I do something wrong? I was still gasping from the pain when Kevin burst into the room, his expression thunderous. He rushed straight to Valentina, cradling her face with gentle hands, his voice thick with concern. Valeria, have you lost your mind? How dare you lay a hand on Tina? She came up here out of kindness, and this is how you treat her? At that moment, our parents appeared in the doorway, their eyes immediately drawn to Valentina's tear-streaked face. Without a single question, they turned on me. Their voices rose in a chorus of anger. Never once they stopped to wonder what had truly happened. Chapter 6. Valeria, did all those books you read go to waste? Is this how you treat your sister? You're just an ungrateful brat. Why wasn't it you who got kidnapped back then? Valentina leaned into Kevin's arms, trying to put on a brave front as she wiped her tears, only for them to fall even faster. Don't blame my sister, please. I was the one being too careless. Before she could finish, Mom slapped me across the face. "Oh, this is what you call carelessness." She pulled out a tissue and wiped the blood off her nails, her lips curling in disgust. "Filthy girl." My face burned, but it was nothing compared to the pain in my chest. I lay on the ground, humiliated, blood dripping from the corner of my mouth. My glare shot straight at Kevin. For a moment, his arms around Valentina tensed, his brows furrowed. "You hit Tina and now you're acting like the victim just because we called you out. Apologize to Tina now." I bit my lip and stayed silent. Mom scoffed and turned away, her shoe tip pressing down on my fingers as she walked past. Pain shot through my hand, my face twisting. After all these years, she's never once felt guilty for what happened to Tina. Why would she suddenly grow a conscience now? If you can't even apologize, then what's the point of having a mouth? Maybe losing your voice would be karma. Kevin scooped Valentina into his arms and strode out the door, with Mom and Dad following right behind. At the doorway, Valentina turned back and smiled at me, mouthing a silent taunt. "I'll take everything from you. I'll make sure you have nothing left." With a loud bang, the door slammed shut. Pain shot through my abdomen as my wound reopened, warm blood seeping through my clothes. With the last of my strength, I flung the cheap, fake diamond ring into the trash. A love poisoned by lies I didn't want it anymore. A family built on deception I didn't need it either. Late that night, in the silence, a message from Kevin lit up my phone. "Tina is the one taking risks to be by my side. If I protect you too much, it wouldn't be fair to her. Mom and Dad only treated you that way so Tina would willingly switch places with you. You were the one making mistake today, but forget about apologizing. You'll always be special to me. I'd never force you." I stared at the screen and suddenly I wanted to laugh. Kevin really had a way of twisting the truth. If I hadn't heard everything with my own ears, I might actually believed him. For the next 5 days, the housekeeper was the only one who brought me food, aside from Valentina occasionally stopping by to gloat. I didn't see anyone else. For the first 2 days, Kevin still sent me messages checking in, updating me on his schedule and trying to soothe my emotions. Then, for the next 3 days, he vanished completely. The messages I sent him disappeared into the void with no reply. I knew why. He and my parents were busy preparing for Valentina's birthday party. They had chosen this day to send me away so they could celebrate her without having to worry about the unwanted eyesore in their family. On the morning of the party, Damian arrived as planned to pick up Valentina. Before getting in the car, I made one last call to Kevin. The phone rang for a long time before he finally answered. "Babe, I'm really busy right now." In the background, I heard him talking to someone else. "The screen's too small, replace it, and this spot won't do either." Beep, beep, beep. He had hung up. I stared at the phone for a moment, then pulled out the SIM card, tossed it into the toilet and flushed. Without looking back, I got into the car. The birthday party began. Kevin watched as Valentina took the stage, radiating confidence. Then, suddenly, he thought of my call that morning. A strange sense of unease crept into his chest. He pulled out his phone, ready to call me back. But before he could, Valentina called him out from the stage. "I'm so lucky to have Kev. He's a brother who isn't related by blood but loves me like family." The crowd applauded. Kevin swallowed his unease, forced a smile and played along with the perfect celebration. Chapter 7. By the time the party, it was already late into the night. On the drive home, the car radio played the evening news. At approximately 6 p.m., a severe car crash occurred off the West Cliff. Police have identified a partially burned ID card at the wreckage. Her last name is Cortez, but the rest of the details are unrecognizable. Kevin's face drained of color. Ignoring the fact that they were speeding down the highway, he lunged forward and grabbed the driver by the collar. "What the hell are you playing? That's fake news, right? Tell me it's fake." Screech. Caught off guard, the driver slammed on the brakes. Tires screeched violently against the pavement, the deafening sound cutting through the night. The sudden jolt yanked Valentina out of her drunken sleep. Startled and groggy, she clutched Kevin's arm. Kev, we're on the highway. What are you doing? Calm down. Angry honks blared from behind them. Drivers rolled down their windows, shouting curses, but Kevin didn't he hear a thing. His hands trembled as he reached for his phone. He tried to grip it, but it slipped through his fingers, clattering to the floor. Twice, 3 times. Finally, he managed to press my number. His breath caught in his throat as he listened to the ringing, desperate, praying to hear my voice, to check that the person in the accident wasn't really me. No matter how many times he called, all he got was the cold, mechanical reply, the number you dialed is temporarily unavailable. What's going on? Why isn't she picking up? His voice trembled. Rhea, don't do this to me. You promised me. You said you'd be my bride in 6 months. You wouldn't lie to me. His whole body felt like it was on fire, blood rushing to his head. Turn the car around. Take me to the crash site now. But he never made it there. Stopping on the highway for no reason got them all taken straight to the police station. At the station, the officers went through the usual questioning. But no matter what they asked, Kevin just sat there staring blankly, repeating the same question over and over. The person who died at the West Cliff, it wasn't Valeria Cortez, right? Valentina had never seen Kevin like this before, completely unraveling, like his soul had left his body. Seeing how consumed he was with worry for me, she felt a flicker of irritation. Kev, stop worrying too much. You know how my sister is. She loves disappearing just to get your attention. She's been spoiled her whole life. A few days ago, when she bullied me at home, you and mom and dad all took my side. She probably got mad and bought into some fake news just to make a scene. She's just too used to having everything handed to her. She had said things like this before, and every single time Kevin had believed her over. Me then turned around and treated her even better. But this time Kevin's face darkened. His eyes locked onto Valentina, ice cold. Then tell me. His voice was low. Dangerous. Where is she? His grip tightened around her arm, fingers digging in. Where is she, Valentina? Say it. Valentina winced in pain, frowning as she tried to shake him off. Kev, you're hurting me. Just then, their parents arrived. The Cortez was out of the country, so they had come to bail them out. Instead, the moment they walked in, they saw Kevin gripping Valentina with a furious expression. His father was furious. Kevin, what the hell do you think you're doing? Let go of Tina right now. His mother followed with equal anger. Kevin, this afternoon you swore up and down that you'd treat Tina like a treasure. And not even 12 hours later, this is how you act. She swung her purse at Kevin's head. Valentina immediately threw herself in front of him. Mom, Dad, if you want to hit someone, hit me. Instead, she had expected Kevin to be touched by her words, to feel guilty and soften toward her. Instead, the moment she touched him, it was like a fuse inside him exploded. Kevin shoved her away with force. Don't touch me. His voice was sharp, raw. Rhea hates it when I let you get close. From the second he heard that news report, he had only one thought in his mind: that something had happened to me. Chapter 8. Kevin felt like the life had been drained out of him, helpless, panicked, but above all, terrified. For the first time, with absolute clarity, he realized he truly loved me. But it was all too late. Rhea must be angry at me. She must have been hiding somewhere. I'll find her. Staggering, he rushed out of the police station, only to run straight into his grieving assistant. Mr. Knowers, we just received confirmation Ms. Valeria Cortez fell off a cliff. Her body was never found. Kevin froze. His body swayed and then his legs gave out beneath him. He collapsed onto the ground. His father's brow furrowed in disbelief. What did you just say? His mother's purse slipped from her hands. Her lips trembled, but no words came out. She fainted on the spot. The room instantly brewed into chaos. When Kevin woke up, he lay in bed for a long time, staring at the ceiling. In the brief time he had been Unconscious, he had a dream. A dream that flashed through countless memories of Valeria, beautiful, warm moments that once felt so real. When did everything start to change? Was it after Valentina came back, always playing the victim, always whispering about how much she envied and resented Rhea? Kevin felt like he owed her, like he was under some kind of spell, desperate to make up for her suffering, willing to give her everything she wanted. So he chose to hurt Valeria, to destroy her, all while obsessively trying to please Valentina in some twisted, misguided atonement. It wasn't until the news of Valeria's death reached him that reality crashed down on him. His heart had never changed. The person he loved had always been the same. A single tear, heavy with regret, fell onto the pillow. Kevin shut his eyes, consumed by remorse. He hired a private investigator, look into Damian Moya, get proof of his domestic abuse. Then he called a doctor. Rhea is dead. Her body was never found. The organs she had removed before. He hesitated, then forced himself to ask, did you keep any of them? I want to freeze them, make a memorial. The doctor's breathing turned heavy. After a long pause, he let out a sharp, bitter laugh. She's gone, and now you want to play the grieving lover? Something in him seemed to snap. His voice rose, raw with fury. You're a piece of shit. You know that. We checked the surveillance footage later. Ms. Cortez's anesthesia didn't fully kick in. That day, she heard everything we said. Of course, I'm no saint either. Sooner or later, karma will catch up to me. With that, the doctor angrily hung up. Kevin felt like he had been struck by lightning. What did he just say? Rhea knew everything, but she acted so calmly, so obedient. She even agreed to marry him. No, something wasn't right. Something was terribly wrong. Without a second thought, Kevin jumped into his car and sped to the Cortez family estate. Ignoring all attempts to stop him, he stormed in and forcibly pulled up the security footage. He needed to see how Valeria had spent her last days after leaving the hospital. Halfway through, his hands started shaking. His stomach churned. He couldn't watch anymore. Rage consumed him. He shot to his feet, stormed over to Valentina, and wrapped his fingers around her throat. Why did you frame Rhea? What did she ever do to you? Valentina gasped, clawing at his hands, her desperate struggle drawing the attention of her parents. Mr. and Mrs. Cortez rushed in, their faces filled with alarm. They looked like they had aged 10 years overnight. Rhea is gone, Mr. Cortez said hoarsely. We're grieving too. But you can't take it out on Tina. She's the only daughter we have left. Kevin's eyes burned with fury as he threw the extracted footage in front of them. At first, they brushed it off, but as they watched, their expressions slowly changed. The color drained from their faces. Their eyes turned red. This can't be real. At that moment, Kevin's phone buzzed. The private investigator had called back. Mr. Knowers, the reports of Damian Moya's domestic abuse were falsified. Based on the evidence we found, it was actually his wife, Valentina, who fabricated the entire story. As for her motives, we'll need to dig deeper. Chapter 9. No need. Stop the investigation. Here. The phone was on speaker and everyone in the room heard the words, loud and clear. Kevin's grip on Valentina's throat tightened. You lied to me. Every time. You tried to take Rhea's place. With every word, his fingers pressed in harder. Tell me, was Rhea's car accident your doing? Valentina had initially wanted to play the victim, but with undeniable evidence against her and Kevin's sudden, murderous rage, she knew there was no way out. A chill ran through her. You want to know? She rasped. Let go of me. First. Kevin's fingers loosened and Valentina collapsed onto the floor, clutching her throat as she coughed violently. Meanwhile, Mr. and Mrs. Cortez had just finished watching the footage. Shocked to their core, they could hardly believe that their seemingly innocent daughter was capable of such cruelty. They couldn't hold back their outrage. Tina, why would you do this? Rhea was your sister. Valentina pushed herself up with trembling hands, a mocking glint in her eyes. Now you suddenly treat Valeria as my sister. She scoffed, her voice dripping with sarcasm. You want to know how she really died? Her gaze swept over the people in front of her, the same people who once swore they would give her the world. Now their faces were filled with nothing but disgust and betrayal. Valentina shifted into immediate hysteria. It was all of you who killed her. I only said Damian was good looking, and what did you do? Kev, you planned on to ruin Valeria's reputation, drugged Damian. You forced me to have a fake sex with him just so you could turn her fiancé into my husband. She let out a sharp, bitter laugh. That's right. Damian never abused me, I made it up. But does it even matter? You never bothered to check if it was true. You believed me without a second thought, and because of that, you poisoned Valeria, stole her voice, and left her helpless. The room fell into stunned silence. Faces paled. Valentina's gaze locked onto Kevin, her eyes burning with hatred. And do you even hear how ridiculous you sound? A doctor bribed by some enemy forced sulfuric acid down her throat, sliced her open, and gutted her alive. Do you really think Valeria would have believed something that insane? Her rage boiled over. She swept her arm across the table, sending everything crashing to the floor. Shattered glass and porcelain scattered across the room. You already killed Valeria, isn't that enough? Now you want to kill me too. Slap. Her father struck her hard across the face, the sharp crack echoing through the air. Her mother collapsed to her knees, trembling, her face streaked with tears. This is our punishment. We never should have brought you back. If it weren't for you, Rhea would still be alive. Kevin, the man who had spent years putting her above everything, stood frozen, his eyes bloodshot, his voice barely above a whisper. I killed her. Valentina laughed and laughed. Then, suddenly, she started crying. Look at these people. They never once stopped to question themselves. They were the ones who lost her when she was just a child, yet they blamed Valeria, another helpless little girl, for it. And now, with Valeria dead, they had turned their guilt and anger onto her. But so what? Valeria was already gone. Her sobs turned into hysterical, breathless laughter, her expression twisting with madness. Valeria is dead. I'm all you have left. From now on, I am both Valentina and Valeria. Everything you owed her, everything you owed me, you will repay it all, and you will make it up to me twice over. Kevin's voice cut through the air like a blade, sharp and unwavering. Never. His grief had hardened into something colder. No one can replace Rhea, especially not you. You killed her, and I will make sure you pay for it. He pulled out his phone, ready to call the police. Valentina's eyes widened in panic. She lunged at him, desperate to snatch it away, but she was no match for him. Kevin shoved her back and she stumbled, her body colliding with the sharp edge of the table. A sickening crack, a strangled gasp, then blood pooling beneath her. Chapter 10. Police cars and ambulances swarmed the Cortez family estate, throwing everything into chaos. By the time the news reached me, I was basking in the sun at my estate overseas. Damian handed me a glass of red wine, his tone casual yet laced with amusement. I heard Valentina lost her child, suffered massive bleeding, and had to have her uterus removed. Meanwhile, the police found evidence proving she wasn't responsible for your death. Kevin lost his mind at the station, accused them of falsifying evidence, caused such a scene that he got himself detained. When they finally let him out, Valentina, who had escaped from the hospital, ran him over, broke one of his legs, and as if that wasn't enough, she drove straight to the Cortez family estate and killed Mrs. Cortez. His husband is in a coma. I took the wine from Damian and drained it in one go. That has nothing to do with me. Valeria no longer existed in this world. Anyone connected to her, anything tied to that name, was nothing but a stranger to me now. I went by Verona, now the sole owner of this estate. This place was bought with the money Damian and I earned from a project we built together in university, one we later sold for a small fortune. But Damian and I were never lovers. Back then, when Valentina returned, Kevin became obsessed with her. So I chose to step away, quietly letting Damian pretend to be my fiancé, but I never expected. I shook my head, pushing the thoughts away. Damian frowned and snatched the empty wine glass from my hand. You just recovered, the doctor said. No excessive drinking. I stared at the glass, lingering on the taste, not quite ready to let go. For reasons unknown, guilt, conscience, or something else, Kevin's doctor friend hadn't followed through with the plan to kill me. The sulfuric acid had been diluted 100 times over. The initial burn was excruciating, but with time and minimal treatment I healed completely. The incisions on my abdomen had been shallow, barely more than surface wounds. No cosmetic surgery was needed. Once the scars scabbed over and fell away, it was as if they had never been there at all. But I placed a hand on my lower abdomen. The surgery 3 years ago, that had been real. My uterus was gone, and for that I would never forgive Kevin. Damian hesitated, then said, no. One has arranged Mrs. Cortez's funeral, yet before she died, she kept calling your name. Find a funeral service to handle it anonymously, but I won't be involved. I turned away, a single tear slipping down my cheek. Silently, I wiped it away and walked off. Some people only realize the value of something after they've lost it, but for me, the present was all that matters. The past was gone. The future, I would never have to see them again.